Hello, footies, and welcome to your latest episode of Foot in Review. My name's Nathan. You could probably see or hear the fact that I am not the silky smooth voice of our good friend Dan or Wemby. Unfortunately, he's sitting this one out due to it being school holidays, if you heard the shorts last night. I have the great pleasure, though, of being joined by the other most regular member of the Fun Tuesday Club. Shaq, you're here today. How are you doing, pal?
I'm doing fabulous. Thank you very much, Nathan. I think this is the first show that you and me are doing together, if I'm not mistaken.
It quite possibly is. If it's just the two of us, there might have been one snuck through a year or two ago, but it's
That's
we
right.
do so many of these that it's hard to keep track.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, but just want to start off with saying, how's your week been? How's your week in foot been? Have you played a lot? Have you grinded? What's it been like?
I think I'm doing one of those Jekyll and Hyde things and it's really correlated to my weekend and whether I play champs or not. Last week at this time, I was really frustrated. But this week, because I haven't played champs, I really had a fun weekend. I just went and played rivals when I felt like playing rivals. I played some squad battles, and it's a weird relationship with the game right now, but it's fairly positive. I'm not hating on it because I'm not really chasing anything. The only thing that I'm struggling with is a lack of good back luck for fodder, but otherwise it's all good.
Yeah, there seems to be lots of things to put fodder into, but maybe less way of generating that fodder. And I know, listening to the shorts last night as well, John and Dan had a good little section about positive mindset. Have you kind of adapted that now? Because I know early in the game there was a lot of people hating on it, and I don't know whether it was the game itself, whether it was going back from these 95 plus rated players, whether it was a bit of both. Like how are you finding sort of the mindset, the mentality side of things?
I think one of the things that a lot of people are mentioning the fact that something like champs is quite competitive this year as opposed to last year. So if you're used to a certain record last year, you're not going to get that sort of record consistently this year, whatever that is. So, for example, if you were 11 win player last year, you would expect to get maybe 6, 7, 8 wins this time, which is sort of okay. But the thing is, all of us are aspiring to that 9 wins, which is, I think, in correlation, it probably is the 14 wins of last year. And I think that's where a lot of frustration is coming from. Those rebalancing of the number of wins has really thrown the community apart. And also, champs is not an easy ride. I will quote our good old friend Nick the Run the Foot Market. It ain't easy, man, because it really is not.
No, I mean, to be fair, like we've said all along, it's kind of in the titles, isn't it? Champs is the elite level where you'd expect it to be sweaty, and you go in thinking it's fine. I'll get my X amount of wins, and I'll just not sweat. And as soon as you're in there, that competitive nature, and I think in most of us, because we keep saying, although we say we're quite casual, no one here is really that casual. So as soon as you go into the game, you don't want to be losing. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. This is obviously coming for somebody that still hasn't even ventured into champs yet. He's qualified and still haven't had time to actually play the thing. But in terms of, you're saying about your pack luck, have you had anything notable? Have you done any of these, they've been throwing out some of these gamble packs. Have you done that, some of them? Have you done any of them or none of them?
Oh, look, I've been very strategic with my fodder this year, and I've been extremely strategic that I skipped the hero pack from last week, knowing that there's going to be an icon pack that's noteworthy, the 88 plus icon SBC. I really put everything together, every single inch of fodder, including playable cards that I've used, like Midema, all live cards. I threw everything in, plus a few coins, and drum roll ended up with Crespo.
That's
So
not a bad one though. That's a good one.
he's 86k on the market.
Oh, maybe he's not then. Maybe that's a small loss then. I'll take that back. From my point of
How
view,
did you go?
I did it, and to be honest, originally I was quite disappointed when I looked at it was mainly the playstyle plus, because the player that I got had a chip shot plus, and I thought, oh. But then I'd messaged Dan, and Dan said he's actually really good. Like that's a mini win for this. So I ended up putting him in, and it was Michael Owen, who's 88 rated striker. His stats are really good with the Hunter as well. So I've managed to put him in, and actually, like, he's amazing. He's managed to shift Rashford from the striker to the winger just so I could put him in. And I can't complain. I know he's not totally meta, but he finishes his chances. Like, my word, he does. For a player that you think, no, like, he is really good. And, both of us here are Man United fans. We had an interesting day yesterday, obviously, but
Oh
Owen kind
yes.
of goes into my past and present team as well. So he serves a purpose in rivals, but he can be a squad battle warrior. He'll help me in rush as well. So actually, I'm not too unhappy considering it's not the card or the name that you want popping out of your pack, but actually, I think it in my eyes it kind of speaks for the way the game is that you can get a player like that that's still very very usable, even if you kind of look and go, oh, it's not the player that I was hoping for.
Yeah, I think this is the beauty of this time of the year where these kind of cards are really exceptional. Like I think Owen's got a 5-star weak foot as well.
Four, I think he's 3-star, 4-star.
Oh,
I
four
think
star.
I could be
Okay,
wrong, but I mean, it
still,
could be because he doesn't mess with either foot. To be fair,
he's a really good card to use at this stage of the game. So I think a card like that is probably a really good reward out of the pack. I mean, it's not the best reward that you could get, but it's like in the good tier, a usable tier, which is amazing. Well done.
yeah, and the icon link gives everyone else a +1 as well. I think so that kind of helps in the chemistry side of things. So, pack look wise as well. I mean, I've not shouted about this because I missed last week, but I think towards the tail end of last week, I managed to get my Vinicius as well, which was quite an interesting one because I was on with Dan. I said, I'm just going to quickly open this pack. Opened it. I thought, oh, Brazil left wing. I thought, oh, it's another Neymar, isn't it? Because I've had 3 Neymars already. And then out popped Vinny, and I was like, oh, that's surprisingly nice. So Pat Luck's been all right, although you either get these very good ones, or the rest of them's kind of like I think I've had Beth Mead about 6 times now. So good in terms of rating, but terrible in terms of usability. But my week in
Yeah.
foot's been quite calm. I've kind of done my rush. The rush took me about an hour and a half, and luckily I didn't have much frustration with the away from keyboard warriors. Rivals, I managed to get my wins in rivals pretty quickly. I think it was yesterday morning. I finished my 45 points, and the last game, I think, or the second last game, was a promotion to Div 2. So I thought, I'm just
Oof.
going to stop now. As soon as I got my points in Div 2, I was like, I'm retiring for the rest of the week. So I'm quite happy with that. So it's been quite good for me. Again, no champs, but I think doing it this calmer, casual way seems to make me enjoy the game more and appreciate the fact that, yeah, I've not got the money that some have to get these ridiculous teams that are even in Div 3, Div 4. You see some of these god squads, and quite comfortable with where it's at just now. Although team building's just becoming a nightmare at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think I must call it back to the first weekend of champs that Dan and I played, and we just ended up having a frustrating time. Whereas you hadn't played, and it's not like we were better off because we played champs, and we were exactly the same. And I think that's something that I learned from that particular session of champs, that I don't have to play every weekend of champs. If I have the time, I play champs. So thank you for that, Nate. It was a good wake up call to me to say you don't have to play every single champs, because it's a few coins. That's literally it. We're not getting anything more than that. It's just a random pack that you get. So I don't think anyone that has FOMO for champs, just stay off it if you don't have the time.
Yeah, unless you're a 15 win merchant. But I think the top wins are
Oh,
obviously very worth it. But at the kind of more relaxed level, it's much of a muchness. I think with some of the other options available in the packs that you can get. So moving on, Shaq. One of our big things again, it was touched on last night. I'm gonna hate on Dan a little bit because we put in our chat that we were going to talk about this. I think this was actually his idea to include this, and he's gone and stole it last night. But finally, Evos are back. Some really tasty options. How do you feel about the lack of communication first? Because we'll start on the downside because I like to build it up. Like, has your thoughts changed on how it was handled when they were kind of, I was going to say out of play, but they weren't. They were still there. They just weren't any sort of new ones or fresh ones.
uh, I don't like the fact that they didn't communicate. And personally, I don't know how you feel about this, but I personally didn't like the fact that they just put everything all at once in Evos. I mean, I was unaffected because I didn't have too many tradable cards in my club. But if I had a lot of tradable cards in my club and suddenly I see the value of my whole squad going down by hundreds of thousands of coins, it is a bit annoying. So that part, I'm not really sure if they could have handled it differently, but Evos are back. Communication is still crappy. They did communicate that they messed up, but that's where we are. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always a big advocate for communication. I think communication's key in every walk of life, and I'm a quality manager. My actual real job, I have to communicate with my team, my employees, my clients. So I'm a big believer that you have to communicate. If something's not quite right, put your hands up, say, look, we know there's an issue. We are working towards it. I think that's why EA get quite a bit of hate because they don't communicate. On the other hand, they have almost, I say almost made up for it. I mean, when you look at some of the evils they've brought, some of them are crazy good, crazy good. There's a bit of me that says, I still don't want to drop, that was it the brilliant Bumpaster 70k. Do you really want to put 70k into a card which, going by the cycle, it could take off next week and actually these be left behind even as good as they are. There's some really good sort of free ones as well. And there is a variety of players that fit. So I'm really happy they're back. It's really tough deciding though, because some of these are so good. It's really hard to kind of think, I want X, Y, and Z to be that Evo player. And, Dan's a big advocate, we know, for wait and see what comes so you can chain them. I've not seen any crazy chains so far. I know they talked about the
Sissoko.
Sissoko one. Yeah, that one does look crazy good if you can link him. But I'm really happy that they've brought them back. I mean, it does add more things to do to the game, and it's something I want to touch on is kind of the state of the game just now. So we'll do that later. But I think it's a good thing. I think they've kind of improved in terms of the players and the selections you can have as on last year's where Evos were very limited and there was only one or two players getting done, and you see the same Evos like everywhere. For somebody like personally, I've only done 3 Evos. I've done Mainu Delo earlier, who I can't re-evolve unfortunately, and
Yep.
I've
Yep.
done Rashford up to 85, who is still cracked with that power shot. So I can't be too disappointed. Although we had a chat, and there's a certain player who I'll not name that I am considering Evo in. You and Dan have kind of told me no.
Ooh.
But when you look at the stats, actually, if you go from purely a gameplay perspective, I mean, there's some crazy cards out there for players that you probably wouldn't have thought you'd either want in your team, or you kind of secretly do kind of want because they look quite good, or they could do like a past and present team. So how do you take if there's a player that you don't agree with either actions they've done on or off the pitch? Does that stop you thinking I'm not putting them in my team, or do you go, actually that could be a great bench boost, that could be a game changer for me?
I think there's only there's very few players that I actually have an objection against. I'm not one of those Man United fans that won't field a Liverpool player in my squad if I pretend to have a enmity and rivalry. But at the end of the day, I'm living in Brisbane. I'm not really that against Liverpool as a squad. Yeah, I don't want them to do well, but in a game of FUT, I can put a Liverpool player in there. It doesn't really matter. But there are certain players that I don't even want to have a look at because of certain reasons. But I guess it's one of those things where it's the age-old question of, can you separate the art from the artist? And that's the part that, yeah, it's a tricky one. It's a very tricky one. I guess, yeah, I think it could be up to interpretation, but yeah.
I feel like I've sunk you on that question. I'm going to take that as a win for the host today, because I quite like when we kind of put you on the spot a little bit. I mean, to be honest, it might show my moral compass is a lot lower than yours. That's all I'm saying. But maybe you're a better guy than I am. But no, like, it does give you lots of different options, and team building. Like, we all love team building. I mean, that's a big part of the game, and it does give it another dimension, not just evos, but the plays that you can now put in these evos. And we see certain promos avoiding certain players because of on or off field antics. So it does kind of give you a whole new sort of variety and selection issue, I think, anyway. But I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I think it's down to the person themselves, but it definitely makes a good discussion point for folk.
Absolutely. I think one of the things we discussed in last week's show as well, Dan and I, was the fact that evolutions actually are the only tangible way that you can improve your squad without getting like amazing backluck. So not having evolutions was really frustrating because I couldn't really progress my team. But right now, even though I have a menu that I love using and I have a connection with the player, just having that option of having a Sissoko that I can upgrade and just throw in my club for a time that I just want to change things up keeps me going. And that's a huge deal. That's an amazingly huge deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And the likes of Sissoko, which kind of takes on to the next sort of next return, if you like. We've got the One Nation Cup, but just cups in general. We're going to discuss how erratic it's been, the release of it. But players like Sissoko, or maybe not so much Saicedo, because I don't think anyone's going to use that nation. But even Ugarte that got released last night as well. As a United fan, I'm going to do him anyway, and hope that well, I hope that United win every game. Don't get me wrong, but even like he's probably a good fit for an Evo down the line as well with some of the traits and play styles he's got. But Sissoko could link into that, and like I say, the cup's back. This was a point I wanted to raise, and again, they released it like late last night with the content. But you know, am I being greedy, Shaq? Like the last year, we kind of had a new cup pretty much every week of a promo. Sometimes the cup lasted 2 weeks for the whole promo for Team One and Team Two, but like the cup for me hasn't been released to any sort of rhyme or reason. There's not really been a schedule that you go, cup's coming back. That's great. It's another way to get a few extra decent rated players. Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think the cup just really took me by surprise because they hadn't thrown the cup around for a while, and we had it's the same cup as well. It's the same One Nation Cup with exactly the same rewards as it was, and the first time it came around. And one of the things that I picked up on X was the fact that this time the cup seems a lot harder to get through. I don't think people are doing golden goal, which is okay. But from reading a few tweets, felt like the cup was much harder to get wins this time because, for example, you and me have completed the season. So there's no incentive apart from a few packs. And we have to get our rivals done. And I'm sure there'll be a rush objective that starts tomorrow. So it's just a matter of priority whether we can just spend some time to do the cup or not. So I don't think that many people are actually playing the cup, which means only the hardcores are playing the cup. So that's probably what's happening because there's no fixed schedule as such. But I do, I mean, don't get me wrong. I really enjoy the cups and I really want them to be a mainstay, somewhere where you can just go chill and just play a fun game. And yeah.
I have to say, my experience is slightly different. I think I played 4 games. I've won three,
Oh,
and all three of them were golden goals as well. And then I quit out at one down as well. So, oh no, I lost on penalty. Sorry, the guy didn't quit out, and it was kind of a topsy turvy game and lost on penalty. So, can't really say I've had much of that. I mean, I think it's worth it for the packs alone. But the other thing that kind of like surprised me is they've released the cup, but there's only about 2 days on it because I think the cup goes away at the end of the season as well. So, actually, I know it's not lots and lots of games and packs back, but it's still quite a limited sort of time scale to fit these games in. If you're somebody that either struggles in friendlies or just gets a bad run of opponents or a bit of dip in form, it's a bit odd that you only get sort of 2 days to complete this.
but I think the main reason that this is why I think the main reason they have the cup around is for the SP, and you get 1,000 SP if I'm not mistaken for scoring 12 goals,
Yeah. I think there's
and
two
that
lots of
possibly.
1,000 as well, isn't there? Isn't it? So
There
I
you
think
go.
there's another one for
Yeah.
play. Is it either win 10 games or play 10 games? You get 1,000, and so there is some in there. But and I totally see that. But part of me thinks, well, if you're going to release it on Friday, so you've got the week to do it. I think releasing it for
Yeah.
2 days is a little bit harsh, but maybe that's me with the kind of the negative side of things going. That's a bit strange, but I mean, we're quite lucky. We can sit here with our feet up. We've got our SP for the this season, so we can chill. And I'm just doing it to get extra packs. And like I say, Rivals is done and Rush is done for now. So it's pretty much the only thing
Yeah.
to do. And I've done all my squad battles because I combined the 3 million foundation sort of ways that you can do it. So I think I've got 4 of the foundation teams now done. So I've literally got nothing
Ooh.
left to do. um, so we're currently in Team One of Trailblazers, Shaq. What do you think? Because over the past, probably since I've been involved in foot, actually, we're hearing same players. It's copy and paste, copy and paste. Why aren't they mixing it up? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Because we have touched on it in the past. Like, sometimes we change our own tunes. We say that's really lazy, or there's the other side saying, well, if you have random players that either aren't that popular, people haven't heard of, EA won't get people opening packs, or people won't want to, play the game for that week because these players aren't the ones they want. Where do you sit on that? Like, I think it's quite an interesting sort of point of view that people have.
It is. I mean, and if you scale it back to maybe 4 or 5 years ago when promos were quite rare, as in still often, but much rarer than they are right now, we can point a stick at EA and say, "Hang on a minute, what are you doing?" But right now, with the number of promos that are happening, and EA has probably got some sort of graph that talks about which player should be improved at what time and how much will actually result in pack sales and things. So they are following a formula that works for them. And you can't blame them because they need to have something in packs to entice people to open packs, which is literally their whole game model. So it is frustrating that it comes across that it's a copy and paste. You would hope that some sort of change there would be enticing. For example, last year we had Puteas, we had Bon Mati, It's literally promo after promo. We had exactly the same thing. We had Griezmann in Trailblazers last time, Griezmann Trailblazers this time. We had Di Lorenzo. It's almost the same cards. It's almost the same progression. But I guess the opportunity, like as we discussed, the evolutions and those kind of varieties that they're providing us is probably where we should be focusing our attention to, and think of promo cards as one of those unicorns that we, if you pack, it's great. If you don't pack it, just ignore it because you're not going to get to play with those cards apart from playing in draft anyway.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way. And to be honest, just looking at the latest promo just on Footbin now, it seems like this is the first one they've kind of put a real mix though. We've got Haaland and Bonmati, and obviously Kvaradona, because I'm not going to try and pronounce his real name. He's just obviously fresh off the Player of the Month, but I don't think from memory EA have much control of that because I think they have a release
Yep.
schedule quite a way ahead. And I'm not interested in a new one. If I pack him, great. But I did his Player of the Month, which was pretty decent. But then they've got like Hemp didn't have one till later on last year. Stanway's kind of
True.
a bit different. Bander, I don't really remember having much of an impact. Anthony Robinson, last promo card that was amazing, apart from Team of the Season. I think he had Silver Stars 2 years ago, which was really good fun. So yeah, even the goalkeeper, they've actually included a goalkeeper in this one, which is quite nice, even though he's only 84. So I do, and obviously John Duran as well, who looks pretty crazy for being quite low rated and low priced. But I think they are trying to force in a few players that aren't always the same. I think you're right. They do need to entice people to have a reason to open packs, and I don't think anyone would say no to packing Haaland or Bonmati, or even sort of that Cole Palmer who has just had a Player of the Month as well.
Oh
So
yeah.
I think some of the cards are nice. I can totally see why they've kept these high end ones, but the pack weight still. I mean, I must moan about this. The amount of packs that you open to the amount of red flares that you're seeing is minimal. And even at this early stage, I'm now sitting here going, we've got no chance at Team of the Year. Like absolutely no chance of packing anyone. Even in our Discord, we get some nice pulls from the Gamble SBCs, but we're not seeing it popping off really for the promo players. There's not many top end promo players being pulled from anyone really that I'm seeing.
Yeah, exactly. That's a note that I had a look at the Discord as well, and not a single promo pack of note shows up, and that kind of makes you wonder what the actual pack rate is. And as you said, Team of the Year is going to be another kettle of fish completely.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you think the fact that they've not released sort of player picks on a Monday, they did that pretty consistently last year, but now we're still having, is it the 77 double? I think it is at the
Plus,
moment.
yeah.
So, I mean, for me, I'm not even bothering with them unless I've got a full dupe pile that I want to kind of clear out in case I've got more dupes coming from these rewards that we get. But does that impact it, do you think? Because like a player pick for me at least gives you a chance of having either something new, something fresh. If it's one of three, even though you only get one player, you feel like you've got more chance of obtaining something unusual.
I think with player picks, we started them at some point last year, and it was consistent after that. But I don't remember getting player picks in October, November last year. Maybe November we did, but not October. So I think we're failing to forget that it's literally just 1 month into the game that we even have upgrade packs to grind and things, and we also have league SBCs. And as Dan mentioned yesterday, unfortunately, the league SBCs are kind of skewed because one of the segments costs you 25k at a pop. So that's kind of made it slightly complicated. But I think there's no real upgrade grind, and I think player picks will be coming soon, and that'll probably make it slightly easier for us to pack these promo cards. But yeah, some of these cards, I think we spoke about this before. Some of these cards that were released towards the end of last year, when you had these all these specials and packs, and you pack a card, you think, oh, I had no idea this card was a special card that was in game, and you've just never seen it around.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm wondering when you look at the requirements where you still need 6 rares for a double 77 upgrade, like I think personally that the SBC storage is coming into factor there because they know that people now don't have to just discard cards. Like you can store it. So I'm wondering whether that's meaning going forward will always require a few more rares than before it was maybe 2 rares or 3 rares or whatever. So it'll be interesting to see how we play out because I think people may get a bit disheartened if you're constantly having to put 6 rares into a 75 plus one of three players, but that probably
Exactly.
remains to be seen.
And I think the other big thing as well is in these 78 pluses and the 75 pluses that we get from rewards, you can't really pack icons because there's no promo icons that have been released as well. So that's another big, and I think we will see a huge change when we see promo icons and packs that are packable through these upgrade SBCs, which will also bring the prices of normal icons down. I think, as I said, we're just a month into the game, but it's starting to feel like there's so much content out there that is unattainable.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned we're a month into the game, so that brings us really nicely onto our next sort of topic. State of the game, either post patch or we are a month in, and it's crazy because it feels like we've been in this game for the last 6 months. Like I'm not quite sure how time flies like it has, but it's mental to think that only it was probably about a month ago around now that it was on full release for everybody. So we've probably had it maybe 6 weeks. But how are you finding it? Well, we'll go on to the post patch because we've got a really good question in for that. But in general, how are you enjoying the game? Are you finding we're progressing as you'd expect? Are you enjoying the gameplay? Are you enjoying the grind and the menus? Like, what's your thoughts?
As I said, I haven't played champs, so I think the weekends that I don't play champs, I tend to enjoy the game a lot more because I don't have that pressure of. I think it's the time pressure of trying to get those 15 games done on the weekend when you have other things to do and you have family commitments and life commitments as such. So when you don't have that, it's quite liberating to play the game for playing the game rather than trying to play the game for a particular reward or a particular victory level rank or whatever. So I do enjoy these weeks that I actually don't play champs, and I am trying to stick to that mantra of not trying to engage with every single bit of content. Some things I will do, some things I will skip. If I feel like playing Rush, I will play Rush. If I don't feel like it, that's fine. And I think I've found my happy balance, and I hope to stick to this balance for a while.
We'll hold you to that because I can well imagine in the group chat you'll be shouting at us saying, "Why have I done this?" It's the usual. One of us says we're going to do something and then immediately sort of goes back on that.
That's right.
One little thing
But
that I've noticed in the gameplay, which I've not actually seen picked up on any of the socials and stuff, the referees. Like last year, the amount of penalties that I gave away from just trying to block a shot, just putting like a standing tackle in or even sliding trying to block, I gave away a stupid amount of penalties. That doesn't seem to be happening this year, which I think is really good for my mental health. It's kind of stopped me pulling my beard off and my hair off. But I don't know if you've noticed any little tweaks like that this year. Something that's maybe EA haven't made a big thing about how we're changing this or we're doing that, but just a nice or not so nice little tweak that you've noticed. Is there anything else that you've picked up on?
yeah, that's quite right. Actually, I think even the tackle from behind, where you can actually pull someone down, it is quite effective just outside the box. It's really effective outside the box, and it's quite satisfying.
You can
Just
imagine the other
only until
person throwing a controller and having a wee rage that you're clean on goal, or even just starting the count. I love to do it in the centre circle. It's my favourite one because you've got no chance of a red, but you know that actually that Diaby is going to go fly away from my slower player, and all of a sudden you're like, no, you're stuck on the floor, pal. Unlucky.
that's exactly right. And I think one of the unique things that popping out this time around is obviously there are some meta formations like the 4-4-2 and blah blah blah. There's a whole heap of meta formations of five backs and things. But I have been dabbling with different formations and to varying degrees of success. So I think it's nice to try and not have that pressure of having a meta formation so you can get those wins done, so you can just be a little bit more flexible. And I think quite a lot of formations are actually viable, but are they meta? Not really. But it's about finding your own fun. And I think I have found some sort of fun within the game this particular week. So I think I really would want people to try and just try something different if they're getting stuck of doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we've touched on it in the past, but I think player roles and instructions are really effective this year. I was trying to shoehorn a certain formation with certain players in, but I like my 4-2-2, but I had Vinny, Rashford, I think Garnacho that all play like wide mids or wingers. So Dan had said, why don't you do a 4-4-2 second variant? So you've got the two CDMs and put them as inside forwards, and it actually plays just about the same as the 4-2-2. So I really like that, the fact that you kind of have this ability. Whereas last year we didn't. Everyone was playing 4-3-2-1, or maybe playing a five back to counter the 4-3-2-1, and it was everyone was doing the same thing. Whereas, if you go into YouTube now and Google Meta FC25 tactics, everybody is using different formations. Like, sure, some of the big ones are using, like you say, 4-4-2 or whatever, but there's so many variations and different formations that I think that's one thing that I will say kudos to EA, because no one's really having to play the same way to combat this OP tactic, or they're doing that. Even but then the post patch they said they were going to nerf player formations, and this will tie in nicely with the question we got in our Discord, Bankai35. But I would like to know, how much of what was described in the patch notes for gameplay do you feel have made a difference? I still feel attacking AI is not great, and I still passed offside players. So, have you noticed, has the patch done what they've said? Has the patch changed much? Like, how do you feel now that we're what, a week and a half, 2 weeks into the new patch? Like, has it changed? Is it a different game now than it was a few weeks ago?
Not really. Initially, I think we were very excited that it's going to revolutionize the game, but I don't think that it's changed much within the game. I think the Trivellas are still working if you really try them. The power shots are better than ever, and the passing is as it was before the patch. Some of the movement is as it was before the patch. I don't really think it's a huge difference, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I missed sort of the launch week of the patch because I was on holiday, so I was a few days behind you. But I can't say it's a different game, from pre-holiday to post-holiday. And I'm one of the very few people that actually didn't mind the gameplay before. Five backs are frustrating at times, but I also think that people with five backs tend to have, stopper or ball playing defender. So they're always likely to move somebody out of position, or the wing backs are really high so you can get in. So I think it's about perspective, and if you're calm in the game and you can notice what the opponent's doing, I don't think I've found much. I've obviously taken a few hide-ins, and there's players that are much better level than I am. But in terms of the gameplay, I think there's always ways around things without necessarily having to play the same style or the same formation. So I think the patch has been quite minimal considering what a big patch it was meant to be, just from my experience. But again, I wasn't unhappy with the state of it beforehand, so I'm certainly not going to sit and complain about what it's like just now.
Exactly, and I think the one bit that is still kind of baffles me sometimes with the gameplay is the fact that the tackle backs keep happening, and when they start to happen game after game, especially during champs, and when you don't feel like you have control of the game, that's the part that I really can't overcome, and that's the part that probably gets me a little frustrated. So spacing out my games, or not playing game after game, or just taking a break every now and then, just allows you to reset and play slower, and maybe reduce your frustration on the tackle backs and do something else and move the ball to the wing and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do feel like it's a slower game. I think, well, maybe the game itself's not slower, but I think you get rewarded for playing slower. And I think Dan's touched on the past, and we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago as well. But playing the ball in triangles or even in squares and diamonds, keeping possession, not playing silly passes. I think you get really rewarded for that, especially just now when you're playing with players with 3-star weak foot. So you're playing with people with high 70s or low 80s passing. I think if you understand the game and the mechanics, a player with a 3-star weak foot isn't going to hit a 20-yard pass accurately all the time, especially if he's facing the other way. So I think sort of taking a wee breath almost and going, actually, I'm going to play this in a realistic manner. I think you actually get more rewarded than possibly any FIFA or FC game that we've had sort of prior to this.
I think that's I like your I like your approach to the game, but also I just want to caveat the fact that you play on PC, which is apparently a lot smoother than console. So I think your experience might be slightly better than what the average console user is currently experiencing with the smoothness of the game within how it actually processes and runs. I think that's, again, this is purely based on anecdotal evidence rather than me actually experiencing it for myself. All the big time YouTubers and things have moved across to have playing the game on PC because apparently it's a much smoother gameplay. But you have a lot of other issues as well on PC, which you don't really have on console. So it's just about picking your poison, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I wanted to buy a top end player, I'm probably trying to pay 3 or 4 times the price of you at sometimes. And we were talking about building my squad, and you and Dana both said, "How about X player or Y player? He's quite cheap." And then I look at him and go, I'm not paying 800k on a player, and you guys are like, it's only 500. I'm like, not on PC. So it does have its benefits, and I'm okay with that because, as you guys keep alluding to, I am a total dragon. I don't really like spending my coins, and when I do, I'd rather keep them for SBCs that I want to do or potential evos. So I'm not in a rush to kind of buy players. So it's fine from that way. And yeah, I could well be seeing things through a PC player's perspective, and I can't. I can only comment on what I use, and I can't gripe with
Yeah.
it in that way. In terms of, we discussed early doors how you are going to approach, say, rivals. Last year you were very happy to not get into elite, say, whereas I was pushing myself to be in there because I just can't not. But how are you adapting to the fact there's relegation, the fact that god squads are everywhere already? Like, is your approach to rivals changed? Are you trying to get into Div 1 and sit there? Are you happy in division? Like, how do you do your rivals, especially?
I'm at the checkpoint between Div 3 and Div 2, and I get so close to Div 2, and I just think I bottle it, and which is fine. I completely, it's fine. I've not progressed to Div 2 ever, and I think I want to stay at this level because I think if I really want to pace myself through and just get my games done and have fun and not really push myself too much, this is probably my level for me to just continue enjoying the game. Because I know if I go up to Div, I accidentally fell into Div 3. I just, as I shared with you in the group, I was in the corner between Div 4 and Div 3, and I was just about to quit the game. This guy did a gritty on me, and I just got tilted and beat the guy 3-2. And the rest is history. I came across to Div 3. I don't think I have lofty expectations to go into elite division because I'm looking at some of the things where people have mentioned in our Discord even that they've had a 19 game run where they've won one game. I don't think my mental state can handle that.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fair. You know yourself, it's bad enough in these divisions when you go on like a 2 or 3 game run where you go, that's not working, and I'll put my hands up. I do that quite a lot, and then that's when I go into different formations and change my side round again, which I know, from the coaching point of view, that is the worst thing you can do. Stick with a formation that you know the players runs, and you could just be on a bad run of form, I could take a break, whatever, but I'm the same as you. Like I like to finish my week on Div 2 because the rewards are slightly better in Div 2 than Div 3. But if I finish in Div 3, then it's fine. I quite like the fact that you've still got the checkpoint in Div 3, so you can almost time your pushes for Div 2 well. So, at the start of my 45 points, I like to remain very much Div 3. Towards the end of it, I try and get myself up, and the last game or whatever, I like to push myself into that. I've certainly got no aspirations to be much higher just now. I'm happy to be staying there because obviously with the system reset, it'll be interesting because I think at this stage last year you went back 2 divisions, I believe, in relegation.
Correct.
And it was only towards the end of the game that you only went back one. So I don't think I've seen anything to say that which way they're going to take. I hope they just put us back to Div 3 because that's where I inevitably would have ended up after 1 or 2 games in Div 2 on a Thursday morning after rewards anyway. So hopefully it's just a one knock back, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
That's quite right.
Finally, just on the state of the play,
Before we go ahead, can I just ask you? Can we start a new segment called "Coach and the Casual"?
coaching the
So that
casual.
you're the coach and I'm the casual in this conversation, at least. I just want to ask you. You pointed out the fact about when you're having struggling and having a rough time, the worst thing to do is change your formation. As a casual, my question to you as Mr. Coach is: sometimes when you're using the same formation, you tend to go on autopilot. So just changing the formation makes you start to be a little bit more attentive to what's happening with your players. Would you recommend that just for that brain snap to try and focus a little bit more, or it's a no no?
To be honest, I think it depends completely on your mindset or on your goals on the game. Like if you're going purely for results, I would say stick with the formations. If it's worked for you,
Mm.
obviously patches bring things in, and but if it's worked for you and it's got you to X level, you've got your formations and your tactics and your instructions set up. You know where X, Y, and Z are going to run. You know what strength that player has in that position. So he's got 5-star weak foot with long ball plus he can ping the ball, and he can almost be your dictator in the middle. If you've got a fast striker that you've kind of got on advanced forward or even poacher, he's going to be really advanced. You can exploit that. I think if you're doing it purely from a fun perspective, and going back to the conversation we had a few minutes ago about how every formation is viable, I quite enjoy mixing it up and trying different formations. But I'm well aware that it takes quite a minute to understand how players work in different formations and different tactics and roles. So if you play, say, three in the middle, if you go from a two in the middle to a three in the middle of your midfield, you've always got an extra player to play to, which is really good. But then if you do it the other way around and you go from like a 4-3-3 to a 4-4-2, the two in the midfield are slightly more open, so you can almost get, it's harder in transition. You also don't have the extra sort of player in the middle where you can play those passes to around. So I think from a casual point of view, it's up to your aims. If you're aiming as a casual to get into the next division and you're just on a 3-game losing streak, I would say absolutely stick with what you're doing. Just take a break, maybe watch some footage back and kind of see. A lot of the time when, when I lose games, I look and it's, I was actually in an advanced position and I tried to force the ball through. And all of a sudden, my fullback that I triggered forward is well out of position. I get counted down that wing. So a lot of it is just understanding your own mistakes, not there's not always an issue with the formation. It's, I've played 20 games without a break. Now I'm just really fatigued. So actually I'm making really poor choices and my hands are a little bit more lethargic. So I think there's a lot to be taken in. And I actually don't think there's a right or wrong answer. And I'm sure that, when John listens to this, he might say, no, I would advise totally differently. But I'm a stickler for formations that that you enjoy already. And, people go on bad runs of form. That happens. It happens in real life. It happens in real football. So I would persevere with it unless you go, actually, I am always getting battered in the middle. I need 3 centre backs. Cool, right? Go to a 5-back or a 3-back if that's so. So if there's a glaring issue with your gameplay, first thing I'd say is come to foot coaching because we're all wonderful and we'll sort you out in 2 minutes. But realistically, I do know that people have issues with their own gameplay. If they don't take coaching or they're not willing to watch their own gameplay back, there are quick fixes. But I would definitely persevere with what you know and what's kind of got you to a good level so far.
That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. I think I really like the way you've explained that as opposed to having a casual approach to it and a competitive approach to it. So
yeah, this game's got so many different sides to it. I think everyone's going to have their own opinions, and hit us up in the comments on your provider of the podcasts if you agree. If you don't, join our Discord. We're happy to have a chat about it. But that kind of just quickly now, we're 2 weeks away. Well, I've had my full SP for 2 weeks, and I do feel like I'm going through the motions. I'm doing the objectives just for packs. Like, how do you think have EA misjudged the timing, or we can get these quick SP in offline manager mode and player mode and teams, whatever. So, how do you think they've judged the SP, and does that kind of draw you away from playing foot as much? Like, how do you approach it when you've been sitting on there and there's no real grind in terms of your ladder?
I think historically speaking as well, it has been quite easy to complete the XP ladder or the SP ladder. So it's not a new thing. And I think this time around, a lot of us, because it's fresh and new, we all went across and did the SP hoarding and gathering in playing career mode or player mode. And I even played a lot of the FC Pro or whatever that's called, the Pro Clubs or whatever it's called this year. And it was fun trying to experience a different thing and collecting SP. But from next season onwards, I have a strange suspicion. This is just a hypothetical theory that I feel from next season onwards, we won't be getting SP from other game modes, but we might also have a potential paid season pass.
They did speak about a season pass. I'm sure they have mentioned that in the past, and it'll be interesting to see the difference if that is the case in free and paid, and how they price it. Are they going to do it? It's going to be 500 FIFA points or 50,000 coins, or will it be a lot more than that, or will it be a lot less? Will it be a token gesture? I think this is quite intriguing, and I said at the start, communication is key. I'm quite liking the fact that this could be a surprise, because it's the same with the leaks. Like I quite like the leaks to know, before, especially when I was heavy into trading, I quite like the leaks then. Now the leaks don't really bother me because I don't take much notice of that. I've kind of dropped out of the trading, but it's interesting because I personally I feel there's been too many ways to get SP, and that's coming for somebody that doesn't play at weekends. They've taken SP away from champs and certain things like that, and I think squad battles don't have SP anymore, if I'm right. So they have taken it away from other ways, but I think it's been very easy, and it's it's kind of made me think, oh, I could. It'd be nice if I got an 85 times two for, I've actually gone 10,000 over the SP. There could be something nice there to reward you. But again, players always want more, and I know that people may only have 2 days a week to play, and these methods are required for you to get that Adama or the 87 times three at the end of the cycle as well. So that's that remains to be seen how they're going to approach that. But it's quite fascinating that you bring that up because I'd totally forgotten about the tier. Quickly, Shaq, while we have you on here, I know that the trading show's not really been easy to come by this year because, well, as we're going to see, I just was wondering if you could provide us potentially a market update, anything that you've seen, any sort of tools or tips that you can give our listeners, just because it seems really hard to find coins without a big tradable pool.
Oh yeah, it's really hard to actually make some coins this year, but also the fact that I think last week's show we actually called out the fact that it's things are going to start moving downwards, and I think even John referenced it in one of the update shows that he did during the week that it's a good time to get rid of tradable club items, and I think it was the right move. If you had any items, if you sold them pre-champs, you'd be laughing all the way to the bank right now. With the market, as everyone knows, we've had a huge crash. That could be the timing of where we are right now, and also coupled in with evolutions. And going forward, it's only going to get worse. There's going to be a lot more casino SBCs, as in we've already had hero and icon packs. They could be, those kind of gamble SBCs that have certain promos in those packs, and there could be a whole variety of such content. And we can't discount the fact that Black Friday is nearly here. So I think the market outlook is pretty gloomy for the next maybe 3 weeks or so. And I have a strong feeling that everything will start breathing again normally once we get it to Black Friday. I remember last year, I think the promo that we had for Black Friday, Thunderstruck promo, was probably my favorite promo of the year last year. So hopefully we get to that stage unscathed. And the one easy way to make coins right now could be fodder. I know it's already gone up, but if you see fodder ever going back down in the next maybe 2 3 days, it's worth just even doing a club stock. Just a quick club stock would get you a long way. I think we're missing a lot of SBCs. So once we have a lot of icon SBCs coming our way and people chewing up, and I think just couple this in with a lot of people have lost coins with tradable cards. What's the first thing they think of? I need to have an untradeable team. Lo and behold, here comes EA with a lot of icon SBCs and other players that you can actually use in your untradeable teams, and it just works in really well. So I think it's bound to happen. We will get a lot of SBCs in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
When you say fodder, Shack, do you mean 83s, 84s, or do you mean sort of higher rated, or just a mixture? I mean, a lot of these gamble SBCs seem to be quite heavy on 86-ish, give or take, rated teams. Like, if they come down to a good price, is that the kind of mix that you want, or do you think people should try and get higher end fodder, or or even potentially lower?
Right now, I would go with the high end fodder because it's not really peaked as much as maybe the 86s and the 85s. The 85s are really high. 86s almost, some of them are almost extinct. So because of the hero SBC and the icon SBC that has this come through. But over the weekend, if you see a large supply, I really would try and club stock the 85s and 86s if they drop a good amount, but also try and at least get a club stock of 88s and 89s and 90 rated as well.
That's good because we know that there's a potential hero SBC coming out. That's not a gamble. It's again, we go back to it, but it's one from yesteryear that we already had that was really good to use. So keep your eyes peeled for that one because it looks quite a reliable leak that's coming. Again, we'll not say who it is. If you want to, I'm sure you'll be able to find it on socials. But it's always interesting to hear the market because this year I have to put my hands up. I can't read this market at all, so I'm quite happy that I'm not really trying.
Nah, I wouldn't this year. I've tried to trade for a while. I had some fun trading, and I think I was having some fun experimenting with cards. And I'm really glad I stopped that experimenting because this particular weekend I was just going to go in and do a massive weekend league squad. And I thought to myself, I don't have time. Let me not buy any squad. And I'm thankful for that because people lost a whole lot of coins over the weekend.
Dan Winbush. 65k on Ashley Cole. Sorry, didn't want to put that out there, but Dan, we will. I know you dig me out when I'm not on here, so we can dig you on that one. But he took a bit of a battering on Ashley Cole. So, but no, that's great. That kind of rounds everything up. Shaq, is there anything else you want to say or you want to add, or any points to raise?
Oh no, I think as I've said, we've covered pretty much everything in the game. I think just enjoy the game for what it is for now, and yeah, that's all I can say.
Absolutely. No, that's great. If for anyone listening that's not in our Discord, it's free to all. If you want to come in and get some chat, you can speak to us directly. There's our great founder, John. There's everyone else. There's a really thriving sort of community in there just now. If you want to go that little extra mile, there is a Patreon tiered subscription as well, which is really appreciated. We can bring you this in-depth one twice a week, but obviously we've got the shorts coming almost every day, so lots of benefits to be had in there. Shaq, then just one last thing.
Drop it.
We are going to drop it.
Drop it.